Timing is everything in pro wrestling. That's why it can be so unbelievably infuriating to see a crowd lose their shit over a genuinely shocking moment, only for WWE to bumble around and let all that organic momentum evaporate into thin air. If WWE had the foresight to see that these crowd responses could be an indication of future success with a talent, perhaps they would have wisely invested in them immediately following the monster pops on this list. No one knows for sure, but I do know that my name is Gareth Morgan, and here are 10 times that WWE squandered a genuine crowd reaction. Number 10. Scott Steiner returns at Survivor Series in 2002. Off the back of a lucrative run in WCW, Scott Steiner found himself gifted with the opportunity to return back to Vince McMahon's playpen in 2002. Signing a 3-year deal with WWE, it looked as though the company had big plans for Steiner, and he returned to a swell of deafening cheers inside Madison Square Garden at Survivor Series. However, a few months later, Steiner found himself in a World Heavyweight Championship feud with Triple H, and that didn't work out very well for the hulking figure. Yet, if Steiner had been allowed to work his way through some lower card guys for a while longer and really bask in the momentum he'd conjured up upon his return, perhaps his eventual neutering at the hands of the game wouldn't have seemed so suddenly deflating. Number 9. Sting debuts at Survivor Series in 2014. Keeping in the vein of WCW alumni, one man who seemed destined to keep his distance from Vince McMahon's juggernaut was the icon, Sting. However, all those reservations were washed away when a famous crow squawked over the tannoy system at Survivor Series in 2014. Sting arrived to ground-shaking fan approval and cost Team Authority their oppressive control over WWE. But Sting had embroiled himself in a feud with Triple H, and we all know how that tends to work out. Couple that with the age-old WWE versus WCW narrative, and all arrows pointed to yet another dick punch to the former enemy. Surely they couldn't have Sting losing his first match for the company at WrestleMania of all places. Oh, but they did. And just like that, all the momentum that had been generated by exuberant fans was dashed in favour of one more symbolic victory for McMahon. WWE are definitely to blame for the presentation of this once-in-a-lifetime talent, and many younger fans who hadn't been present during his heyday were left wondering what all the fuss was about. Number 8. Daniel Bryan reaction at the Royal Rumble in 2015. Coming into the Royal Rumble match at the 2015 iteration of the event, there wasn't a superstar on the roster who came close to being as over as Daniel Bryan was with the WWE Universe. This was the same man who had conquered 3 quarters of Evolution in the same night. So why did anyone in their right mind think that it would be a good idea to have Bryan eliminated from the titular 30 match just a few minutes after he'd entered the fray, with no plan in place to use the negative moment as a catalyst for an angle inside of the ring? Instead, Bryan found himself in a multi-man ladder war at WrestleMania 31 that didn't provide him with the main event platform, which fans were desperate for him to receive upon his return to the ring. It could have all gone so much smoother for both Bryan and unfortunate Rumble winner Roman Reigns off the back of the 2015 over-the-top rope stinker. Yet they both found each other in a tailspin thanks to this blown opportunity. Number 7. Chris Jericho beats Triple H for the WWF title on Monday Night Raw in 2000. Long before he was enjoying a little bit of the bubbly, Chris Jericho was a former WCW star trying to make a name for himself on the then WWF stage. His debut had drawn a big enough reaction, so things looked to be going as planned for Y2J. His next few months would see him interacting with stars such as The Undertaker, Chyna, Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, and Eddie Guerrero, before his biggest moment in the company to date fell into his lap. In what would be his inaugural WWF Championship win, Jericho shocked the world and pinned the champion Triple H in a title match on Raw in April 2000. The fans went crazy, and no one could actually believe what had actually happened. Yet it was too good to be true, and Triple H would pressure Earl Hebner into reversing the decision, thus eradicating the title win from the records due to the referee's fast count for Jericho's victory. Following this, Jericho had to bide his time, and we had to wait another whole year for the main event scene to be injected with the unique energy of Jericho. Number 6. The British Bulldog beats Bret Hart for the Intercontinental title at Wembley in 1992. How is it possible to squander one of the loudest reactions in the history of pro wrestling? True to form, WWE managed to handle the momentum of Davey Boy Smith coming out of this career-defining victory with their signature lack of care. The British Bulldog had captured the imaginations of the 80,000 plus in attendance at Wembley's version of SummerSlam in 1992, and it looked as though the British superstar was set to have that all-important rocket strapped to his back. Yet his reign would last just under a month and a half, with Shawn Michaels usurping the star on Saturday night's main event. If that wasn't enough, Smith would then be released shortly after. However, WWE were obviously not bothered enough about the steroid distribution charges he'd been slapped with to blacklist Smith for long, and welcomed him back through their doors a few years later. But he was just sort of there really and became a Hart family enforcer and was eventually paired off with the WWF European Championship. Number 5. Dean Ambrose's return on Monday Night Raw in 2016. Dean Ambrose surprised the world when his entrance theme burst through the speakers on an episode of Raw after Seth Rollins told us that he'd have a lunatic in his corner at SummerSlam 2018. The crowd were understandably pumped to see the newly beefed up Ambrose tear his way through a stale main event scene. Yet what we actually got was a limp Shield reboot and a flaccid attempt at a heel turn which involved more inoculation skits than decent matches. Before long, Ambrose had ran down the remaining months of his contract and WWE were left with egg on their face as a reborn Jon Moxley took AEW by storm. Number 4. Dolph Ziggler cashes in on Monday Night Raw in 2013. It still bears remembering that before he became the face of "It Should Have Been Me," Dolph Ziggler was actually in line to become one of the biggest stars in the company. A swell of underlying organic support for the show-off fully realized itself on the Raw after WrestleMania 29, when a heel Ziggler sprinted down to the ring and successfully, along with Alberto Del Rio, performed an extremely rare double turn. Fans could not contain their joy, and Ziggler had been naturally positioned as the most over babyface on the show. So what did WWE do? They booked him to lose the title in merely his second defense, and that loss came at the hands of AJ Lee's interference. Way to go, Vince. Ziggler would never climb back to the top of the mountain, and his unbelievable climax on that night after Mania was about as good as it ever got for him. Number 3. Stone Cold Steve Austin helps Mankind win the gold on Monday Night Raw in 1999. Mick Foley will go down in history as one of the greatest babyface ever to earn a living in the ring. Yet it was the moment that many would argue was his finest inside a WWE ring that really stands out as the biggest missed opportunity in his stellar career. Looking back, you'd be hard-pressed to find a hotter reaction to an underdog overcoming the odds than that of Mankind stealing the WWF Championship from The Rock in January 1999. But despite earning the company that all-important edge over WCW in the peak of the Monday Night Wars, this crowning achievement was overshadowed by the appearance of Stone Cold Steve Austin on the night, and subtly foreshadowed the fact that WWF would never truly get behind Foley as champion. Mankind would go on to play hot potato with the belt, dropping and regaining it against the likes of The Rock, Stone Cold, and Triple H, all men who the company saw as a more ideal fit as champion, before never getting a chance to hold the belt again. Number 2. Roman Reigns' promo versus John Cena on Monday Night Raw in 2017. August 2017 was the time, and Monday Night Raw was the place. Roman Reigns was fresh off another Universal title defeat at SummerSlam, and John Cena had waltzed into the big dog's yard. Cena tore Reigns to shreds for his lack of initiative as a superstar and even blamed him for Cena's current presence on the show. Instead of blasting the fans who clearly felt that Cena had a point, Reigns played the smarmy, bumbling babyface and came across as the Cena-like star the world had become fed up of. Another cop-out passing of the torch moment didn't provide fans with any new reason to cheer a star who'd had his flaws thoroughly exposed throughout this feud. Number 1. Seth Rollins returns at Extreme Rules in 2016. Seth Rollins had unfortunately gone down injured with a completely destroyed knee in November 2015 and had to vacate his WWE Championship whilst he underwent surgery. His return was hotly anticipated and left many fans speculating daily as to when his imminent return would actually be happening. So when he finally attacked Roman Reigns after his successful defense against AJ Styles at Extreme Rules 2016, fans audibly lost their minds and voiced their approval of Rollins' actions. Yet before we even had the chance to fantasize about how Rollins could usurp Reigns as the chosen one, he appeared on Monday Night Raw the next night and lashed out at the fans he never needed when he was the champion. By the time Rollins eventually did turn face, it was too late, and even though he was cheered for a short while, he was never able to take his place truly as the top guy in the company. And that is our list. Know of any other times WWE squandered a genuine crowd reaction that we might have missed? Let us know about it in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I've been Gareth Morgan, and I'm sure I'll see you soon.